Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me in my post-mortem for my video game, Gino and Gina's Genetic Adventure. So to get started, the objective of the game is to reunite Gina with her calf, Gino, by answering the questions correctly as quickly as possible. Now, how a typical round or question would work in this game is that the question would appear on the screen for about 10 seconds, and that would give you some time to plan out and answer the question to the best of your ability. All of the questions in the game related to genetics and Punnett squares, which is something that I teach a lot in my animal science courses as an agriculture teacher. And then essentially when the question disappears, the cow is on the screen and there are a bunch of stars, and your goal is to fly the cow, Gina, to the correct answer, whether that's 0, 25, 50, 75, or 100%. If you land on the incorrect star, you lose a life. If you land on the correct star, you move to the next question. You begin the game with 3 lives total, and if you dip below 0 or if you get 0 lives, you lose the game. There's also opportunities to earn and lose lives through flying into fresh milk, which adds lives, or rotten or spoiled milk, which detracts lives. Learning approach and goals. This is essentially an assessment tool that I would use to follow up an in-person or in-class instruction on genetics. From an educational standpoint, I have 3 goals that have been developed. First is to evaluate my students' ability to accurately analyze and utilize a Punnett square to calculate genetic probabilities. Second is to demonstrate an understanding of phenotype versus genotype. And finally, to deepen my students' understanding of different traits that can be genetically inherited through providing 6 different examples. The development process was definitely one that opened my eyes to a lot of different possibilities with making games for the future in my classroom. But a couple of key examples of development evidence within my project include, first, prototyping. When I first began designing my project, I had this really big idea in mind, and I learned how to simplify and start small, if you will. I really focused on getting my mechanics and function down for the first couple of drafts of the assignment. And then I added the art elements in eventually, and Canva was a very helpful tool for making those backdrops and the sprites, so I could customize it to kind of fit my very niche topic of genetics and dairy cattle. Second is coding. Learning how to code and the mechanics of the game was actually very confusing for me at first because I don't have a lot of experience with that. But one thing that helped me a lot through my development process was looking at really good examples that I liked on Scratch. And I was able to actually find a couple of other examples that relate actually to my content area and use them in my classes as well, which is pretty fun. But I was able to look at those codings that they did in their games and kind of mimic or replicate that in my game as well to make the sprites and the different components of the game work in the way that I wanted them to do so. Also, of course, Discord, our Discord channel, and the YouTube was also both very helpful resources for me in learning how to code. And finally, the feedback and improvements I received from Dr. S and also from you all as my classmates were definitely helpful for me in improving my game. I added in an onion patch to make it more of a game feel, where towards the second half of the game, the rotten milk was then worth deduction of 2 lives. So it added an additional element of suspense. I added in a timer on this last edition, along with left and right movements using the arrow key. So all of these different things were able to be developed in my game thanks to the awesome feedback that I received from all of you. So some things that I thought went wrong and some things I thought that went right. First, I'm very critical of myself in this game, and I know there's a lot of different things that I could do differently for next time. First, I did not even think about including a timer in my game until this week. I wish I would have done that sooner, because then I could have had my timer probably do a countdown feature instead of a count up, which I think a count up timer does the job. In a sense, because it's still allowing you to compete with each other to get the fastest time possible. However, it would have been fun to kind of have the game end after, spending more than 15 seconds in one specific question to kind of encourage students to answer the questions a little bit faster, make it more competitive. Number 2, I could not figure out how to place the cow above the stars during flight. And if you play my game, you'd see what I mean by that. But I definitely wanted the cow to fly over the stars, if that made sense. And I could not find a way in Scratch to do that. I spent a long time trying to figure that out, and I unfortunately could not get there. And finally, I tried to make a start button because the green flag was kind of being a little wonky for me, but that would not cooperate. So instead, I just decided to have the game automatically begin once you click that green flag. Some areas that I think went right. I think I had a really good balance of a fun factor while still maintaining valuable and tangible educational outcomes for my students. I had some students play it in class actually, and they had a lot of fun with it. So I think that it does the job for what I need it to within my classroom. Number two, the process from prototyping to drafting to finalizing was very smooth overall. I found that by incorporating the feedback each time and by setting aside good chunks of time to ensure that I was on the right track was very helpful for me. And finally, the goals of the game are relevant to my classroom. I'm very happy that I was able to create a product that I can actually use in my classroom as a result of the course. Some key lessons that I learned. Number one, my students use Scratch on a daily basis. I had no idea, but once I started walking around my classroom during work time, sometimes I'll see students on Scratch, and I had no idea what Scratch was before this class, in all honesty. But now sometimes I'll see my students developing their own games, and it's fun to have conversations with them about the game that I developed in this class, and it's a good way to build relationships with them. Number two, Scratch already has a lot of awesome games out there that, like I said, I've used in my classroom already, and that I look forward to using in the future. Number three, gamification can take a lot of time to plan and implement, but as you improve your development skills, it becomes easier to design. I know for me, the first couple times I got feedback, it took me a long time to make those edits and changes, but once I started getting used to how to use Scratch, it became easier to implement those comments and feedback the way I wanted to. And finally, I learned the value of collaboration and feedback, not only from you all, but also for my students, as I had them practice playing the game with me in class to kind of get some of their ideas and feedback, since they also love playing games as well. So again, thank you so much for watching my postmortem. It's been a real pleasure being in class with you all this fall. I've learned a lot from all of you and playing your games, and I hope that you will have a great rest of your semester, and good luck as you finish your programs. Take care.